I'm Eric Welander, welcome to my channel, and my closet lights just turned on automatically thanks to this new Aqara FP300. Now this sensor really is a game changer. I've been playing with it for about a month now, and I'm partnering with Aqara on this video to tell you all about it. And what I really want to explore in this video is, has Aqara made the mmWave sensor that I actually want for my smart home? But first we need to understand the backstory about what makes a sensor like this so important to have in your smart home. You walk into a room and the lights turn on like magic. And you're sitting there and the lights turn back off, leaving you in the dark. Not like magic. If you play with smart light automations, getting the lights to stay on when you want is something that's hard to get working all the time, every time. Maybe that's because you're using a basic motion or PIR sensor. These look for changes in infrared signal that only come from the movement of people or animals. But there are plenty of cases where you want the lights on and you're not moving to trigger the motion sensor. That's where mmWave presence sensors are super helpful. These modern sensors use radio waves to detect people in a room, moving or not. And Aqara and other companies are already making sensors like this, but they usually require a power outlet. That's where the new FP300 is such a big deal. Not only is it a small mmWave presence sensor, but it runs on two CR2450 batteries. This video gets into some pretty advanced and modern forms of home automation, but I try to explain it in a way that I think anyone could follow along. And this setup definitely took some unexpected turns to get me to where I am today, including Matter multi-admin, smart lights controlled by smart switches, and a good dose of Thread and Zigbee mixed in as well. As I sit here today, I have a great closet setup where someone walks in and gets a nice bright light to see clothes clearly, but when someone is sleeping, instead of blasting bright light, walking in the closet means you get a dim colored light to see without, let's say, my automation waking up my wife. Well, the FP300 is most notably a mmWave sensor. It also has a PIR sensor for basic motion detection, along with light, temperature, and humidity sensors. What this means is that you have a lot of data to automate with. However, this leads me to a significant question I had. Did Aqara address my biggest complaint of their first mmWave sensor? You see, back in 2023, Aqara released the FP2. And when Aqara first launched it, there were loads of features around detecting people in specific zones and using it to map out the space in your home with what the radio waves were able to pick up. But what I wanted was just a magic sensor you could drop in any room and know if someone was in the room and when they leave. Aqara made that better with software updates to the FP2 and later another sensor I really like, the FP1E. But I was really curious about the FP300. Would all these extra specs get in the way of putting this sensor on easy or beginner mode? In the box you get the sensor itself as well as the metal plate for mounting. There's also an adhesive option if that's what you need. Now as far as relative size, this sensor is a lot smaller than the Aqara FP2 and FP1E I use in my laundry room. On the other side, it's a little bit larger than an Aqara motion sensor P1, which is a PIR sensor. And that one also has a much more flexible ball head. Like other Aqara sensors, there's a pull tab separating the battery from the sensor. Pull that out and the sensor will start up and be ready to pair with your smart home. For smart home setup, this can be paired with an Aqara hub over Zigbee or Thread. I paired mine with Zigbee to my Aqara Hub M3. You can also pair this directly with Matter over Thread to another smart home system. The FP300 is designed to track a 120-degree field of view for people up to 20 feet away from the sensor. Aqara also recommends this is mounted at least 6.5 feet above the ground or on the ceiling. For mounting the sensor, I opted for a metal plate and used a nail similar to the ones for hanging picture frames to secure it to the wall. This doesn't fit flush with the metal plate like the screw that Aqara includes, but I love how a nail leaves a minimal hole behind. The challenge I have is that when you want to pull the sensor off the wall, it often pulls the metal plate and the nail with it. But this is a challenge I chose for myself, and I think the trade-off of the flexibility of a nail and smaller hole is overall worth it. Either way, between the screws in the box, adhesive, metal plate, or just magnets in the sensor's mounting plate, you have a lot of options for mounting this thing. The lights in our closet were also in need of an upgrade to get brighter when we wanted to see everything and have a dim night light in the dark. To do this, I replaced our basic light fixture with an Aqara T1M ceiling light. This is an underrated product from Aqara that has a nice big LED light and a strip light around the edge. Both are independent lights across all smart home platforms, offering a wide range of color options and adjustable brightness levels. I paired this with an Aqara H2 US 4-button light switch. 3 of the 4 buttons can be controlled in multiple ways between Aqara and Apple Home. The bottom button is always an off button. Aqara's switch line has some interesting new tech called MARS or MARS. This could be a topic for a whole other video, but right now all you need to know is that it makes it very simple and full-featured for the physical switch on the wall to control lights on the same circuit that are also smart lights, provided they are all MARS compatible lights and switches from Aqara. But my light switch is all the way around the corner outside the closet near our curtains, which means just hitting the light switch button is less than ideal compared to having automatic lights. For automating the lights turning off with the sensor, Aqara has a nice time limit feature as an automation step in their app. When the presence sensor stops detecting presence of people for, let's say, 5 minutes, then turn off the lights. For turning on the lights, I can't just have the closet go full brightness when people are sleeping. One approach to solve this would be to simply look at the light level sensor from the FP300. Thankfully, my wife and I sleep with a noise machine that I have controlled by a smart plug. This means when the smart plug is on, someone is sleeping. This smart plug, like a lot of my smart home, is set up in Apple Home. Because I added my FP300 to my Aqara M3 bridge, which is also added as a Matter bridge in my Apple Home, the sensor just shows up in Apple Home. At first, in the room where my hub is located. I went ahead and set up this sensor with an automation in Apple Home. When the sensor detects a person, if the noise machine smart plug is off, turn the closet lights to full brightness. Another pro tip is to add a check to make sure the light isn't already on. This allows anyone to override the typical lighting by using a button on the switch instead, or whatever other kind of smart home controls they want. When the noise machine smart plug is on, I have an automation to turn the closet lights to a very dim night light setting. This means after a late night working on YouTube videos, I can find my way around the closet while getting ready for bed when my wife is already asleep. This was all working great. Until after one night, I moved my whole smart home to Apple's 2026 OS releases and my automation stopped working. Looking into the problem, I concluded it's probably because of a bug with Apple or Matter. When there are significant changes to the primary Matter controller in your home, accessories added with a Matter bridge get reset back to the room the hub is in, and then appear in Apple Home as a new accessory. So all the automation and scene assignments go away. I've seen this with other Matter hubs attached to Apple Home as well. This means my automation to turn off the closet lights was still working since that was over in Aqara's system, but my Apple Home automations went away. Now, there are a number of ways I could have solved and improved the setup, and I didn't necessarily have to leave Apple Home, but the more systems and brands you try to crisscross, the more likely something is to be slow or to fail at some point. Technology, right? So with my Aqara lights, Aqara switch, and Aqara presence sensor, and the existing automation already working in the Aqara app, the natural idea I had was to set up this automation in the Aqara app. But what about that smart plug? Or what about your setup that probably doesn't have 100% Aqara smart home tech? But hey, I mean, if 100% Aqara is the direction you want to take, I'll leave a link in the description. Go have fun. The smart plug I use with my noise machine happens to be an Eve Energy smart plug. Originally, it's made just for Apple Home, but I was able to install a free firmware update from Eve to convert this smart plug to Matter. Thanks to this plug being a Matter over Thread smart plug, I can then go into Apple Home and turn on what's called pairing mode, or also referred to as multi-admin. Then I went into the Aqara app and added this Matter over Thread smart plug to my M3 hub. This whole process took a few tries, but then it just worked. Now my automations in the Aqara app can see the status of my Eve smart plug, which is otherwise controlled in Apple Home with our bedtime routines. I recreated the same automations I had in Apple Home, and since then, everything has worked perfectly. Whether you're putting your automations in the Aqara app or somewhere else, there are some settings you can configure about the sensor in the Aqara app that you should know about regardless. First is there's a minimum delay for reporting no presence, which goes up to 5 minutes. This means before telling any smart home system that the sensor has detected everyone has left the room, the FP300 will wait for that set amount of time. This could further prevent any issues of lights getting turned off when people are standing in the room, or leaving and returning a lot, like me walking in and out of my closet. You can also adjust the sensitivity of the sensor to dial it in for the right configuration for your space. That said, I never had to touch any of these settings. For me, whatever Aqara is doing around this to make it work out of the box was enough for me, along with installing firmware updates from Aqara. Despite my technical difficulties getting my automation to work, what the FP300 really shows me is the expertise Aqara has with the software and firmware for these mmWave sensors. They've been shipping and selling mmWave sensors like this for 2 years now, which is a long time for this new tech still in early days. The dream I wanted with the FP2 has finally come true. You can simply set up this sensor in a room and use it to make complex automations easy. When there's someone in the room, turn on the lights. When they leave, turn the lights off. If you want to learn more and get this sensor for yourself, I'll leave a link at the top of the description. Thanks again so much to Aqara for supporting my channel and partnering with me on this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.